just stand over here. I just want to say, I met Jen recently, we reconnected, and she was so kind to give us this chance to talk to you. So thank you very much to the Rotary and Jen for having us come. I've lived in Wilton for 32 years, and when I first came here, there was a parcel of land, a ribbon of land that went over around the Norwalk River Valley. And I thought, I wonder what this is. It says state land, do not trespass. I went anyway, looked through it, and lo and behold, I was not the only one who thought, what is this? This is a great piece of property. Pat Sesto, who used to be the Director of Environmental Affairs in Wilton, had a similar thought. And when she was pregnant with her first child, she went walking through the same area and said, we've really got to find some way to bring this to the public. And at that time, some of you may remember that we had a Super 7 plan to go from Norwalk up to Danbury. And what happened there is that they canceled that project, and this DOT land is now available. So what we've got from the southern end of Wilton up to Danbury is kind of not virgin territory, but an area that is completely undeveloped. And so Pat, in her vision, as we all know, little steps can make a big difference. She said, let's see what we can do for the community to bring this to fruition. And through her efforts and several other people in the community and various different businesses, they put some seed money down and started the kind of the formal trail in Wilton, the pretty stone dust. It looks a lot like Waveney Park here. And so now we're about halfway through.
What year did that start, Helen?
It started in the 1990s was when it was starting to be thought of, but it's 2012 that we had the first routing study. And have any of you been on the trail? Can I just see hands? Oh, perfect, perfect, okay. So you know what we're talking about. Well, we have much to talk about. I'll have Andrea explain it. But you have done a lot in terms of the Rotary to help your community. Waveney Park is obviously a great asset to this area, and we hope to be yet another asset that people love and enjoy as much. So thank you.
Great.
Okay, so we'll open with this. Thank you, Helen. I was brought on as the first full-time executive director for the Norwalk River Valley Trail 3 years ago. And the project, as you'll see, is very exciting. It's a legacy project. It's taken a long time. To give you a sense, the state was buying up a lot of land for this concept of Super 7 since the 1960s. And it was finally put to rest 50 years later. And we're trying to build on state land where we can. So here we go. I usually have someone else advancing this, so I'm sorry I'm not as. Just trying to figure out how to advance it. Does anyone know how to advance it?
Slideshow.
Slideshow? And then it doesn't just page through, right?
And then you should be able to hit play.
Let's see.
It looks like there are little arrows down on the corner there. You see the arrows down, little gray arrows? Are those?
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm so sorry. Let's see if I'll go to the thumbnails and then go to the full screen. We start with the video. I'm so sorry. This is, here we go. Okay. So you get a little sense of that.
Hello, I'm Don, resident of Norwalk. Been coming here for years as a runner.
I've been coming for right around COVID.
I actually got introduced to the trail many years ago.
This is my first time here. Just jump across Route 7.
I work in the office building at 187 Ridgefield Road and come along here to walk. Tons of people out here, walkers, runners, people with dogs. Gives people to get out into nature, healthy environment, it's safe, it's fun.
the NRVT and to get service.
I love how much you expand it. I really appreciate this trail.
I came from Danbury, she comes from Norwalk, and we walked the trail.
I've been following online the development as it connects to Norwalk and presents more expanded access for everybody.
Yeah, I love the NRVT.
I love the trail.
Hoping that we keep building and extending it.
I've been a frequent donator to the project, so we can have this great, beautiful, tranquil area for running, exercising, being with our kids
It's beautiful.
right here in Norwalk, Wilton, Ridgefield, Connecticut.
Support the NRVT.
Yes, that's just some of the energy that we find on the trail. At the NRVT, our mission is to build and maintain a 30-mile, 10-foot wide, multi-use trail that starts at Pasture Beach in Norwalk, and it passes through Wilton, Ridgefield, Reading, and will terminate in Rogers Park in Danbury. So this is the planned route. Of the planned route, we have almost close to half that's either built or funded to be built. In Norwalk, Wilton, we don't have a piece yet in Ridgefield, but Reading we do. And so that's the, our first, I'm sorry, it's over here, paging through. So we're gonna start from the south of the trail, which is the Riverside route in one of our newest sections in Norwalk. So the existing trail from Pasture Beach up until about the Maritime Aquarium is mostly off-road. So we have different trails. We have off-road trails that are hard surface, and then we have our own trail, which is a dedicated trail. Norwalk has a more urban trail, so those are hard surfaces. As we leave Norwalk and go north, our trail becomes a 10-foot wide stone dust trail. We try to follow the parameters of being universally accessible, which means we try to keep within that ADA compliance of 5% or less grade, but we try not to exceed 8%. And when we do exceed 8%, to maintain that designation, we do have to provide cutouts so people can rest every 20 feet or so with that grade. So our newest trail in Riverside Avenue, if you want to start someplace nearby.
This is the Norwalk map, by the way, if you want to follow along with that.
So a really nice place to start is with the Riverside Trail. There is parking on Riverside Avenue near Cassatelli Tires. And this is also, our route is not just universally accessible for pedestrians, but also cyclists. And we allow motorized wheelchairs are the only motorized vehicles, but we do allow class E1 and E2 motor scooters and bicycles. As we move north, there's a section that starts at New Canaan Avenue to Broad Street, which is known as Deering Pond. And this area is very familiar to people who grew up in Norwalk. This is also an area where the Eversource substation is, where the silver mine and Norwalk rivers meet. If you're on this particular section, the waterscape is beautiful. If you can kind of ignore all that Eversource buildings behind you. We partnered with the Norwalk River Watershed Association along the trail when we can, and pollinator pathways to combat invasives and try to restore native plants. So we do have a project underway. It might be hard to see here, but we have, NRWA has put down recycled billboard tarps over this just almost like acres of Japanese knotweed. We're in year 3 of that abatement program, and we feel like this is the spring that we're going to start restoring and being able to plant that. And it really is a beautiful section. We do have some gaps as you start heading north. One of our larger challenges is the Route 7 Merritt Parkway interchange. This is now a revitalized state project. So back as Helen was referring to the Super 7 concept, initially that clover leaf was half built where the Merritt and 7 intersect before the project was tabled. It is back on the table with a completion date of 2030. And we have very strong board members from Norwalk, sort of our NRVT Norwalk team, who have been very consistently for the last 12 years making sure that the Norwalk River Valley Trail has a seat at the table in any of these discussions. So last year, at the conclusion of some public hearings in Norwalk for this DOT project, there was a contingency of people that came out, were very vocal about the necessity of getting a safe passage with the NRVT through the merit exchange. And the state has taken that into account, and that's now being, that is now part of the planning for that.
So is that built into the plan now with the state, or is it being considered?
Yeah, it's not built into our planning route necessarily. We have that 2012 study that we sort of follow as our guide. What we're finding is as we move, and this example you'll see in Reading, as we move to actually build trail, we can't really follow those plans exactly, whether it's because of easements that are needed or the topography of the land. So this is now the consideration for this interchange to make sure that the NRVT has passage. It won't be that sexy. It might just be like a widened culvert of some sort, right? It's just going to be more functional than anything. This is a very exciting connection coming out of near the Merritt 7 train station. So we call this the Glaucner Avenue spur, and that will connect the whole Merritt office space, the curved development where the Merritt 7 train station is, to a completed route that we have on the Norwalk-Wilton line around Belden Hill. The original plan, it has an alternate route that is supposed to take us over Gristmill, but the developer, BLT, of the curb is allowing, part of the approvals for that development included accommodating the NRVT. We have been working with our engineers, we've been working with chief elected officials, anyone we can, to push the idea of going under Gristmill rather than over Gristmill. And Gristmill is actually, if you're familiar where the DNB is and that big, you know, that's the last vestige of what Super 7 would have been. That kind of transportation going, you know, cutting right through beautiful forest all the way up to Danbury.
Could I just add something to that, Andrea?
Yes.
Is that Glover Avenue is where there's been a lot of development, and I don't know if you've noticed that they've put up new apartment buildings. Well, they're not that new anymore. Lots of businesses, and what they're hoping to do, really the trail, what we hope to do, is that we can be an alternative form of transportation for people who work in this corridor, so that they don't have to use their cars. And eventually, they could go all the way down to Norwalk, and they could go all the way up to Danbury, technically, once this is completed. And that is actually part of,
Yeah,
the vision.
the multimodal concept of the trail being an alternative mode of transportation.
Does this run parallel to Main Avenue, or is it?
It won't exactly be parallel, but it'll be to the west.
It's near Main Avenue.
It'll go under, so Gristmill is actually a bridge, and
Yeah.
there's 3 sections underneath it. One accommodates the river, another accommodates the rail, and then there's an abandoned sort of tunnel. And we now have, we have more than informal, not quite formalized agreement with state DOT rails to use that and be able to put the trail on that path. So that saves a lot of construction. The idea of going over Gristmill is, I can't even conceive of that.
So it's kind of near the Silvermine Golf Course,
Yes.
which is down this,
Yeah.
which is kind of near Gristmill.
Not quite.
Okay.
Not quite. If you think of really Route 7,
Yeah,
and you just go across the river, which you probably aren't even aware of at that point.
yeah.
It's on the west side of Route 7.
Yeah.
The
It'll
trail
be
would
east of
go,
the golf course.
Okay.
yes.
It's where that HMTX was.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And
Right,
yeah,
right,
further
right.
than that. Yeah. In fact, we've had conversations with them about maybe continuing the trail.
So
with that.
Gristmill is the big wide road that goes to ends at the DNB.
That's
right.
right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And we
And it
perceive
goes
as-
over it
Yeah.
kind of goes over the.
Yeah, and we perceive it as a road when it's actually more like a bridge.
Yeah.
And under that bridge are these 3 areas, one which has been
Yeah, you never
abandoned.
think about that.
Yeah, yeah, there's actually an old stone bridge that crosses the river that is still intact there from probably the 1800s. We just applied for a community investment fund for this section. That grant was filed December 13th for $1.5 million to complete it and connect to our completed section, which, like I mentioned, is on the Wilton-Norwalk border. We extended that particular finish. If you go to Chipmunk Lane in your GPS, Chipmunk Lane Wilton, that'll land you at this stretch of trail, which is the Stone Dust Trail. So that's where we sort of come out of the urban kind of linear park idea of the NRVT into more of the Connecticut woodlands and the quieter communities of Wilton, Ridgefield, and Reading. And that we extended with a recreational trail 50 feet deep. So we keep chipping away at that, and that's where the project from Glover Avenue will connect to that existing trail. And then we have a whole length of trail that we're working on that we want to connect from our existing trail on the Norwalk-Wilton border, which is also includes a road crossing at Kent Road, all the way up to the commuter lot that at the intersection of Route 7 and 106. That's kind of a straightaway stretch. We kind of call that our business route. In essence, it's going to run parallel to Route 7, but across the river, but east of the river. We've been in conversations with ASML now for nearly 2 years to see how they might want to help support support us in getting this constructed. They have a lot of employees that continue to grow. A lot of their employees are a younger demographic. They don't have cars, they're commuting by train, they have their bicycles. In fact, we have a good friend at ASML who commutes every work day to ASML from Norwalk on his bike, no matter what the weather is. And he is the one who shows up at those public hearings and advocates for a completed NRVT. And this is an exciting development. We do have a commitment from ASML to support us, and we just have to clear up some issues with Eversource right-of-ways. So this is, we're gonna go now to the east side of Route 7 and what's called the Wilton Loop. I would direct you to that particular trail if you've not been on the NRVT. So just a little north of Ordom's Diner, there's a commuter lot. You can park there, and our trailhead is across the street. There's crossing lights, so all the traffic stops so you can cross. In fact, anytime you travel down that way during the day, you will see people who want to access the trail. That particular section of trail is completed 2.4 miles. We have funding from the state to extend that another mile. We have gotten all our clearance and state permissions to continue. That particular project that funded in 2022 had a few hiccups. There's an area of conservation in a residential development called Briardale Estates. And we had to get an easement through that conservation. There's an informal homeowners association, which we thought, this will be easy, we'll get the easement with the homeowners association. This in fact is not the structure of that homeowners association, and we had to get 28 separate easements from all the owners of that planned development.
Thank you, Andrea.
And they all had to do that, they all had to sign on, otherwise it wasn't going to be able to move through, because each of them has an indeterminate ownership of that conservation.
What this means is that section in Wilton is now available for, what is it, 5K runs?
Yes.
I think we were gonna have a Pride Day event there, got canceled for some reason, but the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, running clubs come to this section and can use it, for their own purposes, for their events. And that's one thing that we want to get through here, is to let you know that as you know people in the community, that this is maybe an accessible open land that you haven't considered before for events.
Yeah, and again, the Stone Dust Trail is a different walking experience. If you're familiar with a lot of walking trails, and they're sort of modeled after those walking trails in Europe that you'll find through public lands. So we're planning on extending that length another mile this year. So that's exciting. We'll be getting shovels in the ground. Our Wilton North, section, what we're calling the Ridge Route, is it's through pristine forest. We've been working on this particular project. Actually, it was one of our biggest supporters, very, very generous donor, came up with the idea of build a section in a place that everyone's gonna wanna come to, and they'll be, you know, touched, moved, and inspired to keep wanting to build more trail. So we've been on this project for a while. We are applying for state DOT funding for this. We didn't quite make the short list for this particular November rounds of funding. This is through the Western Council of Governments of, I don't know, I think New Canaan is in Westcott. But out of the top 7 projects, 4 have been funded, and we're like number 6 on that list. So we'll keep moving up. We're gonna keep applying, and that's where we are with that project. This one, we're also investigating how to continue south from a finished section, a section we're working on in Ridgefield where we have the funding. That's called the Ridgefield Ramble. So we're just sort of making our way north. You can see how the trail is very established in Norwalk, in Wilton. Everyone in the community knows about the Norwalk River Valley Trail. And as we head north, we're also trying to engage communities and make them more aware of the projects that we're doing. This particular one, the Ridgefield Ramble, we have funding in place. This is CTD plan, Environmental and Energy Protection. That P protection creates a whole lot of barriers that the T for transportation doesn't, and when the DOT owns land. So we have been mired, we've just been mired, and we're getting extremely frustrated. We're doing our going up the food chain and engaging sort of chief elected officials that we know locally, state and nationally. So
What's behind the difficulty there?
So the requirements for CTD, so we have phases of construction, and one of the first phases we call pre-construction, which requires that that we need to do all the required studies. We have environmental impact studies, we have endangered species studies. Because of where we live, we have archaeological studies. If we're on state land, or if it's within a floodplain, now we have to bring in the Army Corps of Engineers. And again, that P in protection.
Just that's it? No.
That answers the question, right? I can keep going.
How much will that cost you in professional fees?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question.
I think the number's oodles.
Yeah, so roughly, for example, the Ridgefield Ramble, this is being funded at, it's a 1.67 mile length that's going to connect to our Reading Mile, which will it's just going to be beautiful. And that funding commitment is for $3.1 million to build that. And we have probably $300,000 worth of pre-construction work, which the pre-construction, besides the studies, also includes the getting to the engineering plans. So that we can go to local permitting to be able to build these things. As we move up, we have our Reading Danbury. We're trying to move from our Reading Mile. This is also nice if you venture north at all. This is a little less than a mile length, which you can access on Pickett's Ridge in Reading. It's just really beautiful through pristine forest. And we had a wonderful relationship with the Reading Land Trust. The Reading Land Trust became the stewards of this ginormous, really large parcel of land that had been in private hands since last century, a private family, Colonel McCormick. It's called the Colonel McCormick Preserve. It's about 180 acres, of which nearly half of that is also in Danbury. The Reading Land Trust, upon acquiring the stewardship of this, has invited the NRVT to route through that land trust. So that gives us the route, which is different than the planning route that was published in 2012. It gives us the route to get from Reading to Danbury. So our challenge now is how do we get from the Reading Mile to the entrance of the McCormick Preserve. If you know Reading at all, you know it is not flat farmland in most of the places. So that's really the challenge. And we're looking at some easements. There'll be private easements along residential properties. And then finally up north, we do a big jump up to Danbury, where the planned route is to go through the Terry Weil Park. Terry Weil Park is the largest municipal park in, municipally owned park in the state of Connecticut. It has nearly 700 acres. So we're planning the route through there, and the planned route, and terminate at the middle school that is in a downtown location. That is advancing, finally. This has been years in the making. So the city of Danbury has committed to providing the funding to do the pre-construction work. And we received a funding letter from the state in November that they will fund this. And this is a short length, it's maybe a third. That's why we're calling it the demo trail, with the idea of if you build it, they will come, and it'll excite people to continue to want to support and advance our legacy project. So that's about $709,000 to build that 1/3 length, in addition to the $85,000 of pre-construction. So there's almost like a 10% ratio of pre-construction to construction money.
One of the numbers that I think is kind of interesting and lets you understand what it takes to build a trail is that it's estimated that it takes about $400 per foot to build the trail. So that puts it in perspective.
wow.
And I think it's actually gotten more expensive.
I think so too. Yeah.
So if you think of it that way, 30 miles, you know.
Yeah.
And then here's just a little video from our 2024 year. So that concludes it. Our contact information is here. We'll just close with a note from Luke. Luke is indeed the freshly minted president, less than 24 hours ago. So he, and we're thrilled. Our previous chair has served the NRVT for the last 6 years, and he's a tough act to follow. But
Absolutely,
Luke
big
is-
shoes.
Big shoes.
Yeah, so I was tasked with talking about the future, and Andrea has done such a good job of really what's in the pipeline that I spent a lot of time just crossing out parts of this. So in conclusion, I would like to thank maybe I can go with a little bit more overview. So, you know, as was said, it started over a decade ago, and we're well on our way to the plan when completed 30 miles from Norwalk to Danbury. And, you know, she mentioned there's a ratio of pre-construction to construction, and that's one of the ways we have to be most active, because there's proportionally, there's much more funding available for construction grants. And so a good part of what we do is really kind of beating the bushes for grants and donations for the pre-construction part, which, you know, as well described, is extensive, can be very complex across numerous government agencies, private owners, easements, you know, all of that crazy stuff. The time frame to do any given section is rather long, and it would be, and it generally runs longer than we want. When I will say that when the whole 30 miles are completed, There'll be an opportunity also to do some east-west connections. There's other trails moving in the area. And I heard somebody say, partially in jest, but take it seriously, is New Canaan has so many wonderful nature preserves, do you call them? Anyway, you know, woodsy hiking areas and everything that, you know, and that's something we're doing. ASML was mentioned. They've risen up as a very interesting partner, and they're funding a pre-construction for a spur to connect their campus to the trail. And with also as Helen mentioned, with the connection, if we can link into the Merit 7 station at the north end of Norwalk, we are legitimately part of the transportation infrastructure. And as younger folks find alternative means such as bikes and scooters and electric things, then you know, we'll see real value there. Talked about the Merit 7 train station and the 715 interchange, which is, you know, gonna be taking a while, but that's absolutely vital. We have some very interesting partners right now. The state has taken a strong interest in their community development and innovation folks at the very top, you know, with Ned Lamont, are very interested in what we're doing, and that would be great if they put literally their money where their mouths are, and we're able to accelerate the pace of some of this. Representative Hines has asked us to confer with his staff as far as possible allocations in the next budgetary year, if the government stays open.
Luke, I'm afraid you're about to get the hook.
I'll be very brief. I'll be very brief, I promise. Just lastly, the McCord family that bought Manresa Island and is turning that into a giant park and facility, they just gave us a very generous donation. So the status is about 14 miles down and about 18 miles to go. That's where we are. And I want to leave you with a quote, and with apologies for the gender reference. It's an ancient Greek proverb that says, "A society grows great when men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in." That's the essence of what we're doing. Thank you.